What are some of those issues? Now, we all have to understand what lies underneath, right? When we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, what are the foundational components? What is it? And you might be surprised because, of course, there's the common ones, right? That all of us are aware of. But we have to know the subtleties as well, the other aspects as well, because that's going to help us discern our client who is a partner of somebody who is along the narcissistic spectrum. Are they really talking about a narcissist? Because relationships with someone who's just a jerk or selfish or egotistical, stuff like that, is very different than someone who is along the narcissistic spectrum. Very, very different. So first off, right, let's talk about this pervasive pattern of grandiosity. Now, this is what we all understand. Grandiosity is a big component. Obviously, narcissism. Everybody's like, oh yeah, this grandiose presentation and this need for admiration, this lack of empathy, beginning in early adulthood, and it's present in various contexts, and that's important too. So when we talk about, well, this person, has narcissistic personality disorder, that means it doesn't just occur at home with their partner or spouse or with their kids, that it also happens at work. It happens in friendships. It happens in this pervasive way across contexts. And if it doesn't do that, that is a huge, huge, huge component. I can't say that enough. That these behaviors, these maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns that are of narcissistic type, that they are present in a variety of contexts. If not, then we know, okay, now we're going towards traits. And traits, as difficult and challenging as it is to treat, is so much easier to treat than an individual who is genuinely along the narcissistic personality disorder spectrum. It is vastly different and so much easier. There's less defense mechanisms. There's less, you're going to feel less countertransference. There's less confusion and frustration. And there's less attacking you, typically verbally, right? Sometimes physically, but it's typically verbal. And where did these symptoms and issues begin? And that can be tricky because if it's only from the partner, we're only getting one side of the story, right? We know for every story, there's three sides: my side, your side, and the truth. So it's a blend of both. So we have to understand that as well. So where did it come from? How long have you known that person? Where do you think that this originated? It doesn't always mean it came from parents. A lot of times it does. It comes out of whether spoken or unspoken rules in the home, typically, but not always, not always. Now, a grandiose sense of self-importance, right? We certainly understand that it's this sense of greatness, right? That these folks are, and I often say this, and this isn't meant to be derisive, it's meant to be as an example, but they're often like kitties, And if you ever have a kitten, right, and you bring a little kitten home, and you're petting the kitty, and the kitty first, when he comes home, right, he goes behind your couch. He or she goes behind your couch because they're afraid, they're nervous. It's like when a genuine narcissist, right, comes in for therapy. Initially, they're a little, reticent, a little like, well, who is this guy? Is he cool? By now I have a lot of content that's out there with the YouTube channel, things like that. So people tend to skip that step with me, but they may be like, all right, is this guy really like that? Like, is he really like that person who seems to be interested in people's wellness and getting better, stuff like that? So they're that scared kitty. Now, the grandiosity is, of course, that umbrella. We're not surprised. It's that umbrella to kind of house that fear, shame, doubt, guilt, inferiority that lies at the core content. That's classic core content. Not all individuals not all narcissists have that same core content. But what happens is, right, so they come in and often, they'll say, oh, I make this much money, or I've done this, or I've done that. Oh, well, have you been here? Or have you been there? Have you, and they're sizing you up, feeling you out. A lot of us, I don't know if you've experienced this, but for me, they often ask where I went to school. Oh, you went to school there. Why would you go to school there? That's really not what they mean. Remember, we're looking underneath. And the component of that, of challenging me and saying, well, where you went to school there? It was a nice school. I went to West Virginia University, one of the most, now I'm going to tell you, one of the most prolific universities in the country as far as like personality disorder research, stuff like that. But that's besides the point. Fun fact for you. I don't know if they still are, but they were 20 years ago when I was there. Anyway, but I don't tell my clients that, because what they're asking is, are you competent enough to help me? So if you went to WVU, how many narcissists could there be? I'll tell you, there's plenty. There's plenty there. Then FSU is there, plenty there. And then I worked 21 years in the federal prison system, plenty there. So they're around. So, but I don't say that, because what they're saying is, are you competent to help me? Then once we're kind of over that little hurdle, like they get that justification or they don't come back, but let's say they did, then typically what we're talking about is when we start to get to some content, and we'll start to hear about these preoccupied fantasies of unlimited success, brilliance, beauty, ideal love, what kind of lover they are, how all these people have fawned over them and is crazy about them, and these women, men, people, whoever they are so infatuated with me. I understand why, but it's too much. God, just leave me alone. Things like that. And they're telling you, look at how good I am. Do you see how good I am? I'm good. And they want to convince you. Now they've sort of, maybe, possibly, how are those for clarifiers, convinced themselves, but they're definitely trying to convince us. Now, when they believe that they're special and unique and can only be understood by other special people, that's also where this sense of fear, if I put my mental health in your hands, are you going to be able to help me? Are you going to be able to prevent me from losing it? That if I open up some things about my past, or the way I feel about myself, or how I see myself in different relationships, or so on and so forth, are you going to be able to deal with it, manage it, and can I trust you to stay put and not take off on me and not reject me? Because typically rejection also is something that a lot of narcissists have experienced in the past. They, of course, just buffer it by this sense of, oh, you weren't good enough, or you were stupid, or whatever it may be. So we're looking at that, and then it requires excessive admiration. This is the kitties, right? Once the kitties, right, they're underneath the couch and they start to come up, maybe they get a little food, and they're having a little food, they're kind of getting used to your home a little bit, and they're kind of seeing what's up, and they're checking it out. They like to be pet, right? And they want to be pet a lot. The little kitties, they want to be pet a lot. And they want a lot of attention, right? Because if you don't, then you end up with and if you're a cat person, I don't mean this in a mean way or anything like that, but sometimes they end up with a little, like, whatever, right? And my mom was a huge cat person. So we had stray cats of all shapes and sizes when I was growing up. And some were kind of like, and some were very lovey and cuddly and things like that. But it's part of that. They need that excessive admiration. They need that for them to feel safe, because it all factors into this grandiose sense of self, preoccupied fantasy, feeling special, that only being understood. But it's all surface, because underneath the classic content, right? Fear, shame, doubt, guilt, inferiority drives those maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns.